So lately I've been working with a lot of my students on the pentatonic scale specifically. Seems like that's just always, right? We're always working on the pentatonic scale. So in talking about the pentatonic scale family, all of this, we need to first define terms. There's a little bit of confusion about what is, say, a pentatonic scale. That is not the note A, that is just the indefinite article there, right? A pentatonic scale is just any scale with 5 notes, right? So you can have lots of different pentatonic scales. You can make up your own pentatonic scales. Some people might even argue that it's an arpeggio of a chord, but either way, just any 5 notes you choose randomly is a pentatonic scale, technically. Now, when people say the pentatonic scale, they're usually referring to a couple different things. They could be referring to the pentatonic scale family, which we're about to go over. They may just be talking about major pentatonic or minor pentatonic scales. These are individual scales within the pentatonic scale family, but they're just not doing a very good job of being specific about which one they're talking about. The pentatonic scale family in its entirety is 5 modes, is 5 different scales. Let's put that down just to write it out. So pentatonic equals 5 different modes. Okay, you got it. And we're about to go over all 5 of these scales, but I'm hoping in doing so that we also begin to understand sort of how modes work. I think this could be an easier place to start with modes because there's only 5 of them and not 7 as in the normal major minor keys, the diatonic scales as it's called. I want to be clear, there is no starting place in any of this. There are scales which we happen to use more than others. That would be in this place, the purple, which is the minor pentatonic, and the red, which is the major pentatonic. We'll get there. Those 2 are the most used. The other 3, not as much. But that does not mean that they are not valid, that they are not modes, that they are not scales you can also use. You just have to know how to use them. So in looking at the circle, to try to explain a little bit before I get into it, the interval names will never change. They will stay stationary this entire time, okay? Our actual scale degrees, that's what these guys are called, they are scale degrees. I've given them different colors just to help differentiate which scale degree we're talking about at any given moment. This one will rotate. And I will place, say, when we're talking about the red, the major pentatonic, I will place red up at the top, and we'll talk about that. Then inside of this, I also have a circle of notes. Now we're going to be looking at them all, what is called in parallel. So we're going to look at every single mode spelled starting from A. So that way we keep consistent. We're used to A minor pentatonic. We're going to look at A major pentatonic. We're going to look at A blues minor. There's different names for these other 3 too, but we don't use them very much, so not a lot of people know these names. In fact, I'm actually looking at a cheat sheet right now just to help try to tell you more things about them. So looking at minor pentatonic, if we spell this out, now root can be spelled as 1, either way, whichever way you like it. I usually do actually write 1, but I'm putting root here now just so we know that every single thing is being related back to this root. So we're going to we got root. Then our next one, we got flat 3, so minor third. And then our next one, we've got 4, our 4th, right? We got perfect 5th. And we've got the minor 7th or the flat 7 in that scale. And we can see why it's minor pentatonic. We have a root, a minor 3rd, and a 5th. That spells out a minor triad. And then the extra notes, this makes it a minor 7th chord, and this 4th is just an extension note. Could be called an 11, depends how high you play it. Now I also want to add then, let's add them as notes too, just to help us out. We got A, we've got over here, we got C, right? Over here we got D to E to G. So that would be it, also spelled out in terms of A. And we'll kind of leave this over here for now. Maybe try to put it up higher. And moving on, we go right here. We got major pentatonic scale. Okay, so major pentatonic scale. Now all this stuff has to be fixed too. Looking at this one, we can see now it's changed all of our numbers because we changed the relation to them. So now we've got root 2, 3, 5, 6. 2, 3, 5, 6. And our letters would be A, B, C sharp. A, B, yep, C sharp. And I'm purposefully putting C sharp because we're thinking of it as a major third of A. That is the correct name there if we're thinking of that interval. It's not for this lesson, but there is a reason why. E and then F sharp. Okay, and again we will rotate. Now we're going to the orange spot. Now this spot is called the suspended pentatonic. And as I said before, I'm even looking at a cheat sheet just to figure out what the heck it is too, because I don't really know. Suspended pentatonic. Now suspended is just a word that means we don't have a third. The third usually has been moved to the second or to the fourth. It's all that means, okay? So now to rewrite a lot of it here, we have root, we have 2, we have 4, 5, flat 7. 4, 5, and flat 7. So if we look at that chord, we've got a lot of different suspended chords. A sus2 or a sus4 chord could fit on there. And we're going to put out A, B, D, E, and G. Okay. We can see how closely that relates to this minor pentatonic. Actually, it just substitutes flat 3 for 2. Other than that, everything else is the same. Now let's go for our rotation. We're bringing yellow up this time. Okay, so now we have yellow up at the top. This is called blues minor. Apparently, they weren't very specific with this, with the title of this one, because I would also think of blues minor as being a minor pentatonic with an added flat 5. So this one could get confusing. It could be Aeolian or Phrygian pentatonic. I mean, I guess I'll put the name that I see here. And here we have root, flat 3, 4, flat 6, and flat 7. In terms of A, we have A, C, D, F, interesting, and G. We've not had an F yet, or a flat 6 in any of the pentatonic scales. But so remember, it's still all one family. They all share the same relationships here. So now we're going to go to the very last one, and we're ready to rotate to the last one, the blue here. Now this position is called the Scottish pentatonic, at least according to here. Let's see if we got some other names. Chinese names, we got Japanese names, Raga Devakriya, some Carnatic names. Remember that the pentatonic scale family is all over the world. Every single culture in the world recognizes these 5 notes in this particular order. So there's going to be always a lot of exotic names for all of these scales because they get used in all cultures. But at least for our Western name here, we're sticking to Scottish pentatonic. Might have something to do with the way that bagpipes are tuned, is my guess. Okay, so 2, 4, 5, 6. Okay, looks pretty consonant, meaning, you know, pretty pleasant sounding. Okay, so we got A, B, D, E, F sharp. So let's look at how that differs from suspended pentatonic. So 2, 4, 5, they just have a flat 7 here, giving you this minor 7th sound. You got a 6 over here, which is a bit more consonant, a bit more pleasant sounding. All right, we got 2, 4, 6, all the extensions, and then a root and a 5th. So these are the 5, and you can kind of see through my rotations now how they all go together. Now, one point to make here, though, is that any one of them can be considered the first mode. Whichever one that you're thinking of at a given time can be your first mode, and then all the others will fall into place. So as we did here, if we were thinking of minor pentatonic as our starting position, then that would be the first mode. And then major pentatonic is the second mode of minor pentatonic. Or we could say Scottish pentatonic is the 5th mode of minor pentatonic, right? That all makes sense because we can see them linearly. Now it gets more confusing if, say we're thinking about major pentatonic as our starting place, like this is what we're really jamming on, then we need to know that minor pentatonic is the 5th mode of major pentatonic, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Back up again, because it's a cycle, right? It goes around. We could count that this way too, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So hopefully that makes sense. And they each come with their specific patterns on the guitar. And so you learn all 5 of these patterns. You can actually play all of them if you can play the Pentatonic Scale Family all over. If you can play one, you can play them all. It's just important. We bounce back and forth a lot between minor and major pentatonic shapes. Keyword there, shapes. We're not bouncing back and forth between the scales necessarily. But if you start playing a minor pentatonic, you can come down here and use the C major pentatonic shape. There will be no difference between it. It will be the same 5 notes either way, and vice versa. If you're thinking about being in major pentatonic and that's where you're soloing, you can go and use the 5th position, which will be what you think of as the normal minor pentatonic. So let's do something a little different next. Let's rotate our ring back around to the start. Now I'm going to leave. We're going to think of minor pentatonic as our first mode now. What we just did was called parallel. So all of them begin on A, and we can see their differences matched up because of that. We can see how they differ. But now we're going to do them as relative, which would be the other way. I don't know if it'd be the opposite of parallel, but it would be the other way of thinking about this, which will be let's leave everything the way it is. No more rotating of this, okay? And we're going to just change something about major pentatonic. So this is actually, in this case, going to be C, D, E, G, A. Now we can see now that C major pentatonic, same series of notes in the same order, but just starting at a different place. Now let's do suspended pentatonic. So we're starting this one, C. Okay, so we got D, E, G, A, C as our suspended pentatonic. And then down here, we're going to have to rewrite this one too. It says E, G, A, C, D. Beautiful. And then this one's going to be same exact notes, yet in another order, right? This time we're starting on G. We're going A, C, D, E. Yeah. And that is the relatives of A minor, or of C major, or of D suspended pentatonic, or of E blues minor pentatonic, or of G Scottish pentatonic. They are all, those 5 scales are all the same, just starting in a different place. But they do give you interesting, unique intervallic relationships. Now let's take a look at the pentatonic scale family in a different pitch. So we're going to move it somewhere else. Here we see the G, E minor family. So I tend to think of these families not just as G or not just as E minor, but I put the first 2 positions sort of together, E minor and G major. This helps you eventually to memorize all of your relative major and minors, which is very helpful even in the diatonic world, all of it. There are 5 modes, which means 5 unique scales. So each one of these is a different scale, as we saw, right? 1, 2, 4, 5, flat 7 is different from 1, flat 3, 4, flat 6, flat 7, right? Different overall intervals, which give different sounds. But the harmony, tonic especially, so your home chord especially, will almost always decide which mode you are in and are hearing. This means if you start playing a progression and it's G major, A minor, B minor, C, so just a straight up G major progression, you're not going to be able, you can't say I'm playing D Scottish over G major. You're not. You're playing the fourth position of the G major pentatonic. I hope that makes sense. Let's do another example. Okay, so we got E minor. Let's say we're playing E minor, A minor, B minor, A minor. Let's just do that, a 1, 4, 5 in E minor. If you're playing those chords and you start playing a suspended, this shape here, let's say, we're just going to call it a pattern, you are playing the third position of the E minor pentatonic scale. You're not necessarily playing A suspended. In order to create what will be called the A suspended mode, you would need to be playing some chord that goes perfectly along with this, which would be A sus2. I can see other D sus chords in there. Anyway, you would map this out and you would find out all the possible chords in A suspended. We might do that in future videos. But just important to say, don't start calling these patterns suspended or Scottish. I mean, you can think of them that way if you want to just give them a name in your mind, if that helps you. But it's important to see them. When you're playing in E minor, they are the third and fifth position of E minor. They're not. You can't force a mode onto an E minor progression. Okay, and then also I wanted to look at another tonality. So here we see the B major G minor key. So we've just moved our spots on the fretboard, right, in order to make this happen. We were on E minor. We moved it up 3 frets to the 3rd fret. Now we got G minor and B major. And then that leaves us these, C, D, and F now are our remaining notes. But again, most of the time you're going to encounter, when you're using these, you're going to encounter B flat major and you're going to encounter G minor progressions. You're not going to usually encounter progressions that are in any of these 3 modes that stick only to those modes. They will be using notes from outside, just to sort of clarify that. So then if I keep adding, so I also want to, just to prep for a second video in which I will go into kind of the way we can think of these with a diatonic scale. The pentatonic scale family it exists within the major and minor framework. Major and minor scales have 7 notes. Of those 7 notes, if you were to throw 2 away, you would end up with this pentatonic scale. So these 5 notes are the real driver of melody and harmony. They actually are doing most of the heavy lifting. The other 2 notes are just sort of grace notes, approach notes, extra little flourishes, but these 5 are the most important ones when it comes to understanding, say, A minor. In A minor, we also have a B and we have an F in the actual scale of A minor, but those 2 notes are not as crucial as these 5 are. So I want to do a follow-up video about how we think about these 5 notes within the framework of the 7 and how we know where to place this scale within the framework of the 7. Now here's a little teaser, a little spoiler for you. There's actually 3 different pentatonic scale families that exist within one diatonic scale family, and I'll show how that's possible in the next video. And so going on to chords though, if we look at this one, we've got A minor triad, we have the minor 7th, and we have what could be considered an 11 or 4th. So we could say, if we want to get very, very, very specific, we'd say A minor 11, but really the simplest answer probably is just a minor chord or a minor 7 chord. Let's do either one of these. Minor, comma, minor 7th. Let's just do that. Try to keep this somewhat simple. Now, for the next one, to change it a little bit, we're definitely looking at major pentatonic, so we know that just the name is going to be a major chord, right? That would be root, third, fifth. That's a major chord because the third is different from this minor one. But then we also have 2 and 6 here. These are extensions. So you could play a 6th chord or a major 9 chord. We don't really see a major 7 at all. So I'm actually going to call this a major 6 as far as the overall tonality or sound to me. There isn't really the 7th yet, so we're going to leave it there. This is also why jazz uses the 6th a lot. It's actually a very consonant sound to end on. Okay, now we're looking at suspended pentatonic. We've got no third, right? So the only things we can really do here, we've got a sus2. We could do a sus4 chord. We've also got that minor 7th, so this might be a little bit advanced, but we could do sus4 or 7 sus4 or 7 sus2 chords as well. Okay, now for this blues minor, I'm seeing a minor 3rd, but no 5th anywhere in this scale, which is unique for sure compared to every other one that has a 5th. So we have to kind of get creative with this one. Minor, we got a flat 6 and a flat 7, so we have a minor 7 sound outlined with no 5th. Definitely have a minor 7th chord insinuated here. Remember, we were also calling this kind of Aeolian or Phrygian as far as its sound because of this inclusion of the flat 6 none of the others have. We may not understand that terminology till we get to modes of the diatonic scale family, but we'll leave that for now. And then lastly, let's look at this one. We've got root and a 5th, and then just all extensions. It's very consonant sounding, you know, the 2 and the 6 especially sound really nice. We have a sus2 or a sus4 chord. Let me put those down first. Looking for anything else, but I mean, that's pretty much it as far as chords go. But we know it's going to sound good. The important part, too, about this sus one and this sus one is that those are going to sound good with a major or a minor. Like if someone were playing a major 6 chord here, this is still going to sound pretty nice with it. Or because this one has the flat 7, if someone were playing a minor 7th chord, this is still going to sound pretty good. Because the third's excluded, you can just put in whatever third you want yourself as well. Okay, I think that about does it for now. I hope that some of this made sense or illuminated something for you between the parallel modes and the relative modes of the pentatonic scale family. And like I said, next time we'll see how these relate within the 7-note diatonic scale and how you can play. Essentially, if you're thinking that you're in the key of G, you can play G major, C major, D major pentatonic, or you could play A minor, B minor, E minor pentatonic over all of that. And they would all work because within those 7 notes called the key of G, there are 3 completely different pentatonic scale families. But more on that next time.